Pointed at the ceiling because nobody wants to look at my forehead. Okay. We can close that. This meeting is live streamed.
Hey. Can you hear me?
Hey, Fletcher. Yeah, I can hear you. Let me turn up my volume a little bit. All right. Any chance you guys can hear Fletcher? Fletcher, say something
Can
pithy.
you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is going to be a challenge with him on my
Yeah,
computer.
I'm just gonna mostly listen. Yeah.
Okay, he's just going to mostly listen. So we'll treat Debbie as his, yeah. All right, so I'm not going to mute you, Fletcher. Oh, that's fantastic. We've got groups here that are willing to imitate you and project.
You are chairing this. You're down.
We are
Okay, TikTok, 7 o'clock.
Good evening. We'll call this meeting to order.
Actually, it's a minute before.
May we have a roll call, please? Councilmember Berger. Councilmember Gillespie. Present. Councilmember Holdren. Present. Councilmember Marino. Present. Councilmember Knox. Present. Councilmember Oswald. Present. And Mayor Foskey.
Present?
A quorum is established. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any comments on the minutes from the April 25th meeting? No comments?
Yeah,
Okay.
on page 3, working with ANC for appropriate lighting.
Yes, Nathan got that one.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Also, I've had occasion recently to delve through the minutes, agendas, and videos. And, since this is a public record, I think it would be useful to identify Matt as town manager. I mean, future town managers may not know who Matt is.
Oh, so you'd like to refer by title?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you're talking about throughout. Okay, instead of, okay.
Council members you identify. I thought it was nice. That's
Any other comments? Need a motion to accept the minutes.
Move to accept the minutes as amended.
I second. Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
So be it. Okay, and we have a public hearing on the homestay at 60 Carr Street.
Open the public hearing at 7:02.
I open the public hearing at 7:02.
26 cars. The property is at 26 Car Street.
It's 26, it says in the agenda 60.
60.
60.
Yeah. Isn't it 60, Kerr?
Oh, that's you. Oh, this is
No one has signed up to speak.
Okay, no one is, okay, so then are we going to close the public hearing?
I would just confirm that.
Any comments? Any public comment? No? Okay, then we close the public hearing.
Still 7:02.
Okay, next on the agenda is a
Oops,
resolution.
hang on, we actually need to vote on the special use permit in order to have 60 Kerr Street operate as a homestay.
I'm confused why that was a question about 26 or 60.
I don't know.
My fault.
So we're good with 60.
Yeah.
Are we going to issue a special use permit to operate a homestay at 60?
Right. The motion is on page 5 at the bottom, if you want to use that suggested language.
Someone use a motion, do the motion?
No, it's
Okay.
wrong.
May I have a motion, please, one way or the other?
Mrs. Vice Mayor,
Yeah.
I move to approve special use permit 05-22. The following requirements. Up to 4 guests may occupy the homestead at any one time. All guests must park in the off-street spaces provided. The owner agrees with the terms of Code 38-77 as adopted by Town Council on February 28, 2022. The owner agrees to file transient occupancy tax reports quarterly as required by Code 16-70 through Code 16-81, even if there is no revenue to report. The owner agrees to provide the town with any online travel agent used to list the property for rent as a homestead.
Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Gillespie. What? Discussion. Oh, you got any discussion? No. Any discussion? Okay. Moved to second, and this,
All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Moved to second and all in favor, unanimous.
All right.
Okay,
Your
next,
legs under you.
next on the agenda, get over here. Next on the agenda is a resolution to adopt fiscal 2023 budget and the capital improvements plan. And we're open to discussion.
We need a motion to adopt.
Well,
I move to adopt the resolution as included in tonight's town council agenda and supporting materials.
Second?
take a vote.
Joy?
Second.
No,
Second,
that was Ray.
sorry.
We got Joy and Ray. And then it's discussion.
Discussion.
Question. Anybody else want to jump in?
Ms.
So-
Marino,
Thank you. I move, the motion that I made was to adopt the resolution as included in tonight's town council agenda and supporting materials. So do we have anybody want to discuss that? So the resolution that we are looking at is, Jen?
You thought that?
Yeah. Let's just check it out.
I don't think you have to read the 4 pages of the motion in its entirety of the minutes. We'll just include
this page.
these pages in the minutes.
Thank you.
question I had was, if we adopt this, then we are adopting this, every line of this, every line on this page 10, right? So we're saying that we agree with the budget and we agree with the CIP, whatever, capital improvement plan. So is this the point where we
You
would
can make an
discuss?
amendment or make it, yes, you can make an amendment to this or just.
Well, I did have a question about the capital improvement plan. Before we turn to that page.
Page 12, table 3.
There it is. We are on our capital budget for our 5-year plan. Building and streets truck, F-150,
Please tell us what page you're on.
the last page.
Page 12
numbers.
of your packet.
This is within the resolution.
Okay,
Page.
well, I'm looking at the capital budget, so we're going to divide.
Okay.
Yeah. We're going to buy a building and streets truck, F-150, and a parks and landscaping truck, Ranger. We have 2 employees. Do we need 2 trucks?
Yes.
I'm asking council. Let council speak about it.
Well, first of all, I don't know that we can know whether we need 2 trucks or not because we don't do the job. So,
Fair enough.
and whether they use separate and different functions for the trucks, I don't know. Can you answer the question?
Again, currently, each member of the Public Works Department, including the water, the streets and landscaping, each have their own truck for their own use because they don't always work as a team. Individual projects, you know, like today, one person was grabbing the benches to be refinished and the other person was hanging flags down. They can't be in 2 places at once without those 2 trucks. So operationally, it's replacing current equipment and
Becoming more
and
efficient?
operationally, it's just,
So are you saying they currently have a truck? Terry has a truck, and Mike has a truck,
correct. And Victor
and
also
Victor
has.
has his own vehicle. I just want to clarify that.
Now, there was a question there's a question of what the new tax or the tax assessed valuation is. And currently it is 28 in this proposal. I would like to suggest that we go to 27. But I would need a motion to that effect.
Before we go there, we discuss the current motion.
Oh, the current one that's on, yeah.
One that we have is this one, right?
To
With-
adopt the
yes,
agenda.
yes.
With the 28-cent rate. Is that correct? I'd like to speak in support of that rate. I think that, as I mentioned at the last meeting, we're in an inflationary cycle. So we can expect probably that expenses will increase next year over this year. And I think that in talking about the master plan, there's uncertainty in the amount that's going to cost. It could well cost more than we've included in the proposed budget, in which event that would have to come from reserves or savings or somewhere. So I don't think that this is the time to maintain a level budget as we would with the 28-cent tax rate. I think a small increase of that we've seen with the 28-cent rate would be the most prudent course given our current economy.
Any other comments?
I would like to respond to that in agreement and also noting that with what we're putting in from reserves for the water bill offset, even though it's coming out in different ways, there will be, for a lot of people, a significant reduction in what they pay the town, or something of a reduction that could potentially offset that, the tax from the 28-cent rate.
That will not reduce the water bill. What we're putting, it will not, it raise it.
No, it's gonna reduce it for people with minimum use, with lowish use.
The
And
23% or whatever.
Only that category,
Yes.
only that
Quarter of the
category.
rest.
What this 1 cent would do would be an across the board help to all of our citizens. And my question is, if you have a reserve, what do you have it for? If it's not affecting your budget in this year, and it's probable that there's going to be an inflation rate, or it's probable that it'll go down. We don't know, that we have no crystal ball. So,
well, we don't have a crystal ball, but we see enough of a pattern to see that expenses are going up and that
everything,
and that,
see, and if everything is going up and you have an opportunity to help the people that you represent for a penny, I would say that we have the funds and we could use them.
I still think it's better to have small increases over time than get to next year and have to raise taxes significantly.
That's what it is.
But for what reason? I mean, what do you foresee to go there?
Expenditures for the master plan is a big question mark. And just the
And
general,
controllable. And controllable, because that master plan has a figure attached to it that we are not bound to.
true, but if we want to complete it, then to
We
me,
don't know
we
what
would
it
have to
is.
fund it.
But we don't even know what it is.
That's-
So there's,
I
you know,
agree
you
with
can,
that.
you can allocate
It's that
$100,000, but you don't have to spend it. And if you don't have it, you don't have to spend it. So, okay, let's not belabor this. Let's,
Well, I'd like to make a comment. My understanding is if we stay at 28 per hundred, there will be a 3.7% increase in taxes. If we go to 27 per hundred, there will be a 0 increase in taxes. Is that correct?
That's correct in the aggregate.
Okay. I really troubled over this and still am for a long time because this was my household budget. I would be concerned because basically we're using our savings to meet our expenses. And that's not a good trajectory to be going down. It's not sustainable. So if this was happening in my house, I would either increase the revenue or decrease the expenses. We're doing the opposite. We're decreasing the revenue and increasing the expenses. This is going to come due one, next year, the following year. As Cindy pointed out, it's not very sustainable to continue. But then I come around here. Faced with the tax increases that our residents have seen from the county, and we all know we just paid our taxes. I think that we need to help out in any way we can because people really got a huge tax increase in the county.
and this would do that. It's a Band-Aid. I admit it, it's a Band-Aid, and I'm supporting it because we're hurting. And across the board in many ways. But council, I need a motion to do something.
I think we're going to have a motion on the
We have,
floor.
no, we've not made the motion to move. I would like to move that we reduce the tax rate as reported in table 1 of the resolution from 28 cents per hundred down to 27 cents per hundred.
Okay, so Joy made a motion to adopt to amend the resolution from 28 cents down to 27. At this point, we need a second.
You've got a motion on the table. You can't change that.
correct,
Yeah.
yes.
So you have
We
to,
have
Fletcher,
to
you're
have-
saying we have to decline, if they choose to, they would have to vote against the
Who
motion.
made the original motion?
That's why I asked that
Who
question.
made the original motion to adopt the budget?
I did.
Joy.
Okay, well, then you can change it then if it hadn't been, and somebody have to second it again, yeah.
Joy
She's
can
saying
amend her motion.
she can amend her original motion.
As amended.
The motion is amended and we need a vote.
No,
A second,
now
we need a
can
second.
discuss. We can discuss this and if anybody has any further comments today.
Don't we need a second to go to the discussion?
Not on amendment, not on your amendment.
Thank you.
So we've
Thelma
got
seconded.
Thelma seconded. Okay.
Discussion? I hear none. Then we vote.
Do we vote first on the amendment and then on the original motion?
No, you just vote on the
original motion has
amended
been amended
resolution.
to the sec- to the
So
amendment.
to
Declare it-
retain the option to stay with the 28 cents, that would be a no vote at this point.
No,
It would be,
That-
yeah,
that
you would have to
motion is
vote
not on the
against
table.
her, she amended her resolution or the resolution to be a vote for 27 cents on per 100 tax rate. So that's the motion that's on the table.
Motion is that we move that we reduce the tax rate as reported in table 1 from 28 cents down to 27 cents. That's the motion.
Mr. Berger, may I have your vote?
But let's be clear how we're voting, because I think there is some
Is
confusion.
there a question about
A
what
yes
we
vote
voting?
means,
We're voting for your amended motion.
let's be clear about what that amended motion is.
Be clear about it.
28 to 27. If you vote yes, that would signify that you agree
To reduce.
to reduce.
Mr. Berger? No. Ms. Gillespie?
Yes.
Ms. Knopf?
No.
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
I vote no.
Okay,
Yes.
Oh, hang on, that's 3-3.
Is it three?
I vote,
Yeah, 3-3. You've got the mayor on
no,
No.
no,
the, okay.
Motion fails. Then we will remain the tax rate at 28%.
So, but do we now need to adopt go back
I
to
would,
the
I would
original?
appreciate that.
Yeah.
So,
So now the
You now
motion
make a
would be,
so I now move again to adopt the resolution as included in the agenda and supporting materials as written.
I second.
okay.
Mr. Berger?
Yes.
Ms. Gillespie?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I mean, we have to. right?
No, we
No,
don't.
you don't.
Ah.
Ms. Knopf?
So, no, I'm
Wait,
sorry, Ms.
let's be
Gillespie,
clear
was
on
that a
that.
yes or a no vote?
Let's be clear then how we're voting. If we vote to not adopt this resolution, what happens?
Yeah, well,
Fletcher brings it in.
Yeah.
and it will, we'd have to go with our standing, whatever our code is right now. 20.
Well, Fletcher would break the tie.
So let's go, may I go back?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay. So Fletcher, that's 3-3.
now, I'm not clear about, who, did Mrs. Gillespie vote no or yes?
No.
I thought she voted no. She voted.
Okay.
she
I
changed
vote-
her vote.
I vote yes.
Okay,
All right. So that
Thank
was
you
a
all.
split vote. I know that was complicated, but it's important.
it was complicated and the only one who suffered. Let's see, let's move on. For council discussion for the format for the monthly financial report.
I believe that was my suggestion that Matt was following up on. Page 14, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I could do a brief intro here. Cindy, oops. Yeah, I need to get, Mason, you're gonna have to sign this one before you. No worries. So Cindy was helpful in understanding that after tonight's budget, there's quite a lot of work between now and July's financial reporting. So I truly appreciate understanding that that takes a lot of work. So what we want to do is be able to give you the financial reports next year that are most meaningful for you. And it'll give you time between now and that reporting to get them in the format that you're looking for. So Cindy put together a brief packet here for you to look at, and truly this is for your discussion. I can create anything that you find most meaningful. So at this point, I hope you have the conversation, and I really do appreciate it because it is an enormous amount of work to
This
take.
is a
the
model
tables.
on 14 and 15.
It's simplified. to me, we get so many numbers that it confuses me, the honest truth. And I would like more explanation and fewer numbers, I guess it's kind of the overall way to capture what I'm trying to say and not all the past history.
And the main thing that is gonna be the over, under, and what's changed.
Well, do you want to retain those two columns? Do you use those? Do you want them or not?
I definitely want to see percent. But yeah,
Yeah, I think it's helpful to have those to see where we stand
Yeah.
in both in dollars and in percentages. I like the grid lines. I need the grid lines. Those are great. The one thing that I had trouble with, and this is not just on these, but in other contexts too. When timelines jump around and go from right to left sometimes and left to right sometimes, I get lost. So if it's workable to, I mean, I get why putting the current stuff next to the descriptions could be good, but by the same token, that just makes your eye read in the wrong direction when you're looking at 21, 20, and 19. I'm looking at the top of page 15. Yeah.
So you suggest expenditures as the first column and then budget and to follow
On
the same sequence?
on the next page.
Right, that's what.
So on the next page, I would put actual 19, actual 20, actual 21, budget 20, and then the other 3. So pull the last 3 columns to the left, put them in chronological order,
Starting with the oldest.
starting with the oldest,
And then work forward.
and then work forward.
I would like to see this in an example of this before, we
See it in motion.
actuality, yeah. To
Yeah,
see what it's
I'll
going to
put
look
them all
like.
together and run it through everybody.
That'd be great.
So that, yeah, no problem. I'd love to make sure I get it right before I get started, you know?
The other thing that I would say is for, especially on the first one on 14,
On the summary page.
yeah, to put like the revenue and the expenditures line in bold to make those pop. And keep the column headings on every page.
Yes.
Those kinds of,
Can I ask one question about the first page where it says percent of budgeted expenditures? The third column on the first page.
Percent of budget expended.
Yeah, expended rather. Is that going to be meaningful until the end of the year?
That's just, and it. you're
Because
it's a
if I-
year-to-date figure, right?
If I have something, let's just say it's an even $100 a month. It's going to go, 8%, 16%. It's going to show the percentage of the year, but it's going to be complicated to figure out whether that's a good or a bad number. I mean, if I'm 16% through the year, but I'm 20% through my expenditure, is that a good thing or a bad thing? So that's why I just want to make sure that
if you get to 50% of the year and you're at 90% expended,
correct.
that's
that-
where that becomes.
That's where
into
that
play.
becomes, so the further in the year, the more meaningful that column becomes, no doubt, but you're absolutely right. But the earlier in the year, the more difficult it's gonna be to make any sense of that.
But you
just
can
as a
explain that
format.
in the comments section and you would just say that we're on track. I mean, you would not.
I'm fine,
We
I just wanted to
understand
make sure that I
expenditures
understood the
aren't always
purpose.
equal.
Just
Yeah.
for formatting, you might as well just start from the beginning and go right through.
Otherwise, we'd have to remember that we're picking up at a certain point and
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it's serving the purpose that you were anticipating.
And we have that now. We have percent of total budget. So we're good.
We're there?
do you guys like this idea?
Yeah.
We're working through it. We want to see it. When
Okay.
See it.
the-
So can we do this part through email? please, because I don't want to wait a month before we get an approval. So
Everybody okay?
it's just with formatting. I mean, there's no public decision that needs to get made.
The, one other thing is that the least amount of flipping back and forth between landscape and portrait
Yeah.
would be helpful,
Okay.
especially when you're reading it online, to have to go
And,
like that.
and I like this print size.
Okay, we're there.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
The next thing on the agenda is prioritization of the ARPA projects. And that'll be in that.
Sure. I mean, at the public hearings that we've had and the council discussions and staff work, we developed 23 projects that we'll undertake with the use of the ARPA funds. The second tranche should be delivered to us in the next few weeks. So we'll have all 1.256 million that we're going to get. So we have those, but obviously I can't do 23 projects simultaneously. So what I tried to do was get all 23 projects listed and then in prioritized order. And then if it's indented on this list, it means it's contingent on the previous project being finished. So the first project is the GIS of the water system. That's getting an electronic GPS locator of our entire water system. If you've seen, Victor and the team out there fixing a repair, you obviously know that we need to know where our lines are, where our valves are, where our meters are. That project would be first, but I can't do the next project, which is the valve isolation project, because also if you've seen, we turn one valve and all of downtown goes off. So what we're trying to do is a valve isolation so that we turn one off and we can make smaller segments of the town. I can't do that project until I get the GIS of the map. So that's an example of why that one's before that. I can't do the isolation without having the GIS. So that's why it's tiered that way.
So are you saying that the GIS water system is your number one priority?
I
Since it's top of the list?
No, I put phase one as each of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 projects that I can begin sort of right now. I have everything I need to at least begin the project management. So I'm not saying that GIS is the most important. I'm just saying it's one of the 7 that we would start right away.
Okay, I have a question. We had a lot of back and forth discussion on air conditioning that room upstairs. And it seems to be on your list of projects that can go pretty soon, air conditioning
Well,
upper
it's
town hall.
yeah, but that's after, it's 2 tiers down. So first I would do the police department renovation, then I would do the
I
bathroom. And
understand, but I didn't understand why it was still on the list, because I thought we had come to the conclusion, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe everybody else has a different idea of it, but I thought we were saying if we do that, it would be low priority because we haven't rented that space and we don't, then we'd have to put in handicap access and all the other things that go with. So I was under the impression that that would be way down on the priority, if at all.
well, it's also at the end of probably a 2-year project. So that's what I'm saying. Just because it's listed third under the tier, the first project could take 2 years to finish. Then the next project, maybe it takes 6 months. So it could be 2.5 years down the road before that starts.
I'm just saying, does it get a start?
Well, but that already had the discussion. We removed the elevator from upstairs, but we didn't remove the air conditioning because we do rent that space up there. And if we had air conditioning, trust me, it would be more rented. We've had birthday parties up there. We've had other classes up there. We've got yoga upstairs. So it would be more used if it had air conditioning. Being third tier would mean that if we got down there and we had budget overruns in the others, and you decided not to appropriate those funds, it can still be removed. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Another question. In the police department and public bathroom renovation, does that mean that the police department redo, which will absorb what's now the outside entry restrooms, will come actually after the building that we bought gets redone to be the new public restrooms.
Yeah, that's the sequence that would have to happen. I'd have to have a place for the public bathrooms. And then I could go over and remove these public bathrooms. So it's one project, but it's gonna be two distinct sites.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes, you're absolutely right. When we get the Gantt chart together for all of this, the bathrooms over there are probably gonna be our first undertaking. So that the dominoes, when they fall down, I don't remove public bathrooms from the town for any period.
Exactly, yeah.
On the projects that we adopt in September, there's some that are not on this priority list, like the matching grants for facades, downtown aesthetic, and the town square repairs.
Yeah, they're right. They're
What's not there, Joy?
the business facade grant, the downtown visual improvements and town square rehab are right.
Isn't it
Okay, it's
on
there.
Page 16 and.
Yeah, page 16. So I stand corrected. That was there. What about downtown aesthetics?
That's the downtown visual improvements.
Is that what that is? Okay.
I have a different concern about that if you're done with.
Well, town square repairs, is it on here?
Town square rehab.
It's those. All right, yes.
My concern with the business facade grant, I mean, to put too fine a point on it, but we have the mayor and the town manager that have owned buildings in the commercial district that should be able to apply for such grants. However, if they're in any way involved in the process, that would be a conflict of interest. Hence, and to me, it's only fair that they should be able to apply for a facade improvement because they're in the area of Main Street and, they should have the right to do that. My point being that we then need to make other provisions for handling that portion.
Okay.
One question I might want to toss in there is we just went through this exact same thing with the state small business recovery grant. And anybody with a conflict was made to wait until the end if there were remaining funds. And then on the committee that made the decision about the distribution, anyone involved needed to recuse. So that's how the state got through that at the DHCD. That's how they dealt with that.
I agree with Cindy. I think that the people who are applying for facade should not be on the committee to determine the guidelines or the funding or the.
Well, the guidelines, where are the guidelines going to come from? Because there are no guidelines established as yet.
The first step of that project would be to form a committee who would develop the guidelines for this grant.
Okay.
So that the town council has appropriated $90,000 to distribute, but there are no guidelines to distribute those funds yet. This committee would create that. And I think it would make the most sense to avoid conflict to have, anybody that has direct ownership of a business that would qualify, step back off of that. But at the same time, do we want to have business owners that are in downtown or any place else that are going to help form the committee? So that I think that's the first conversation that has to happen. So conflict is clear on this one, and it's, we've dealt with it before with the state with their grant, so there are ideas. And if we needed to recuse ourselves, I would rather recuse myself from that than hurt any of the other businesses in town.
Question on the committee and the recusal. Was there enough committee left after the recusals to have meaningful discussion and decision making?
Yeah, there was.
So when you're referring to this small business administration,
Small business recovery grant that
Yes.
DHCD gave us.
right.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that they came up with the criteria that they were willing to fund.
Well, yes, they
Yes.
did because it was one grant that had been predefined.
And I think that's a step that members of the council would have to take to come up with those criteria
Sure.
to avoid any potential conflict for you or Fletcher.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. How we get those guidelines created is the first step. So avoiding conflict is obviously in the best interest of everybody. So I'm not, there's no person, nobody's taking that personally. Yeah.
Well, they're not, we're not reinventing the wheel.
In the back.
I mean, Main Street has been doing this, projects all over the world, United States for years. Seems like we could find guidance from them and then get a committee appointed,
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. Did you hear? Basically, he said that Main Street has been governing and guiding projects like this for 100 years, and maybe we could get some guidance from them on how they deal with it in other small communities.
And
Because that's what the HCD came to realize is when you work in small communities, the
Everybody,
engaged people are all the people who are going to be downtown working. So it's kind of hard not to have a conflict.
Okay, so we have 3 projects completed and we spent $58,287 on those.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know where you got that number.
Completed, down the bottom. Hypotank. Well, I'm one again with, these are the only numbers I have.
I'm sorry, I did this in the financial report every single period. It's the last page of the report. It gives all 23 projects and status in the dollars.
Well, let's say that's a ballpark.
The number we spent is $221,572.
that's the
The
whole part.
hypo tank, remove the wood and paint the tower, right? Okay. So,
And Esky support.
oh, it's not in here.
It's on here,
It's on here.
page.
Yeah, the monthly financial reports include ARPA.
Wait.
The very last page.
Yeah.
Just a second. Wood shop's done. Tower's done, hypo tank. Oh, so we're starting on tower, electric tower. We're starting on the docks. Oh, starting on the water? No, that's good. Okay. So
Should we be hearing what you're saying there?
what I'm saying is, let me be clear. Our procurement policy, I keep coming back to that because many of these require council approval before bids, formal invitations to bids, rebids and council approval.
So when we get to the project,
we've already done some of the projects.
but they had to be approved already. No?
Didn't we approve the water tower?
Yeah, you approved the water tower tank.
So you're saying because of this document from September where we approved it, all of this is approved, we don't have to see any of the bids, we don't have to have any.
Well, the bids, the procurement's gonna, once it passes a certain dollar amount, that's where town council is required
Yes.
to approve.
Right.
Right. So we went through the tank painting, and we did all that together. And then after that, that's why we're prioritizing these so that we can get steps to go to an RFP or request for bids or an invitation to bid based on the size of the project.
Does council approve, see the bids and approve?
Depends on the size.
Yes.
We're working
Most
under
of
the
these are
current
on-
procurement policies
Yes.
because we don't have
Yes.
a revised one yet.
So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these fall under that. Where we see the bids and approve.
Is the normal process for the town manager to go through the bids and then to present the bid that meets the requirements
Yeah,
or
most
the
res-
RFP?
The most responsive and
And then we-
responsible, but we haven't started these projects. That's why we're doing this tonight, is to prioritize the order that we're gonna start.
But we don't see every bid.
Well, you're not gonna see the $250 quote from, somebody to trench a line for the water line.
But I guess what I'm trying to clarify here is, because I'm hearing that we didn't see the bids, and like, if there are 3 bids on one project, is it not your responsibility to choose the one and present it to council? Am I
It
mistaken?
depends on the size of the bid, depends on the size of the project.
Between
For
25,000
approval to go, no, for approval to go ahead or not go ahead, but you put it out there for bid, you get 5 bids. we don't see 5 bids. I've never seen 5 bids. I'm just, I don't understand that.
And the council can be as involved as you choose to be. I mean, at this point, let's just take the police department. We're gonna have to go to an RFP for that. The council's gonna see the description of the project for the RFP. When the bids come back from that RFP, let's say we get 3 of them. I'm more than happy to share any of those. I mean, this isn't closed business. I mean, you can see whatever or how
That
much
is our
or how little that you choose to.
Is this question about, are we talking about our funds, or are we talking about procurement policy here? We kind of got sidetracked. We have to follow the existing procurement policy. Why are we discussing that?
Man, we already have a procurement policy.
Maybe we should follow.
We have to follow it. It's a town law, so why are we?
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
Well, that's why we're trying to prioritize the dollars.
yeah, let's get back to the ARPA funds and you're not going to change procurement now, are we? I mean,
Sorry.
No,
What did he say?
we're not changing it now, are we?
No, we are not. We are strictly following the town
President.
adopted procurement policy.
yeah, I'm just curious why we're talking about procurement and we need to get back to ARPA, yeah.
Well, between 25,000 and 50,000, there should be a written request for the proposal and quotes in writing from 3 vendors. And the final approval of award will vest with town council. My question is, how can town council say which of these bids is best if we don't see the bids?
We haven't
How can
gotten
we
any bids
approve
yet.
it?
But no,
We
she's
haven't gone for bids yet.
hypothetically,
I'm talking
Right.
about future.
right?
Future projects.
It's policy. Hypothetically, if you've got 3 bids, how do we vote to say which one is the best if we don't see all the bids? Is that what you're saying?
That's
And that's
exactly.
perfectly fine. If you choose to see all of them, that's fine. I mean, I think the ordinance that we're writing now would say that, a member from council would be present at the opening of any bid. That way, there's no possible indiscretion on management's part, which is, again, perfectly fine. I mean, I'm more than happy. I don't have any.
That's been part of the draft that we've
Right.
been working on.
Right, so, I mean, the draft that's been put together is, I think, strong and,
But we're still under the process.
yes, but no bids have been secured yet because we haven't prioritized the use of the ARPA funds yet, because I don't know where it's from.
Okay, so. Any more questions or anything on this?
Yes,
Let's
we
try.
moved some of these projects seem weather dependent. Like for instance, the walking path at the Little Lake, that would have to be done in the summer. Police department renovations might possibly be able to be done indoor in the winter. It's basically remodeling. So should we take that into consideration when you talk about phase 2 projects with seasonally driven start date?
Right,
I don't think we can do the walking path at the Little Lake very much.
right, that's why it's listed under the seasonally driven.
Okay, but the renovation at the police department really isn't seasonally driven.
That's why it's not listed as seasonally driven, it's listed under phase 1.
Ready to roll. That's phase 1 is the ready to roll, basically, right?
Yeah, phase 1 is that we can get started as soon as you agree.
Okay, so but all the other parts, the northeast park and the dog park are all under begin immediately.
Yes,
He's asking why can't we move the walking path up to?
no, that's the question.
That's
And
the
I'm-
question. Okay, I didn't get that either.
Yeah.
Okay, so just move that little line on up to here.
Well, question, how many of the begin immediately can begin simultaneously, and how much ordering within that group, whether it's the group as presented or the group with the addition of the walking path, can really run simultaneously in terms of keeping track?
Sure, no, fair question. And as far as the project management concern, I've been doing multiple project management for a long time, so I'm not worried about adding one more. What I would say is adding a walking path to Little League right now would be easier because the touchless fixtures at the Little League, and they just added outdoor walking lights to that, and I'm in contact with Billy Justice about those types of things now anyway, so adding that to it is not going to be insurmountable, I'll say. But I did talk with Billy about how he felt about that. And he said in concept, he's in favor of the walking path, but he would need to see the exact route and the, you know, he wants to make sure that the surfaces that we use don't disrupt the grass. We're not gonna use gravel that's gonna get thrown off into the ball fields, things like that. So there's some planning to do, but not, it's adding that to the top would not be insurmountable, but it would just be one of those things that
I think the one that is most involved is the police department renovations.
clearly.
And that's the point I was making, is that's not seasonal driven. You know, you
Right.
concentrate on the other ones up there immediately and then.
Well, that's why police department is under the beginning meeting. And
I do have a
I
question.
think it's the timing of the project. I'm not worried about whether the work is being done inside. I'm worried about getting this thing architecturally designed and getting a contractor that can do the work. That could get, you know, that could take a year and a half.
Getting somebody to
Right.
do it now.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I see what you're saying. That makes sense.
The property that we acquired next to Corner Bakery.
Yeah.
That's going to be the public bathrooms
Public bathrooms and walking center. Yeah.
and welcome center. So where you have public bathroom renovation on here, that's what we're talking about.
That's correct.
And doesn't that need to go before the police department?
It will, yeah, that's exactly what, Fletcher, that's exactly what Sarah was talking about before, is that has to go first so that we don't go without public restrooms.
Do we need to hire an architect or something to come up with a plan for that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You tell me to go and it's go time, but
Okay, so are we finished with this area? Anybody
So,
else have any
is
comments
there-
or questions?
Is there any further input that you need as far as, other than the change of the walking path of the Little League to move up into the begin immediately group?
no,
Is that, are these groups the level of detail that you need from us, or do you need to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7?
no, I don't need the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but what I am gonna do is once I get my project reporting down and we'll have schedules and dollars, that's the report that, once I start giving it to you, I need to know if the format's working before we get 12 months into this project. So when I give you the GIS, and here are the people I'm going to bid, and here are the timelines to get that project done, and here are the dollars associated with it. It's gonna be a lot of numbers, and it's gonna be a bit chaotic reporting, but it'll serve as both the project management budget for timing and for dollars. So that's where I'm hoping that you folks will be involved, and then you'll see who is invited to bid, what their individual bids are, and all of it's going to be in a project folder. So I will give you as much information as you folks want. And obviously there are thresholds that I can't cross because of procurement policy. So if my next question is the timing of it. Let's say that you say go and tomorrow I get a bid. Well, I can't act on it for another month. And in today's world, that's going to be a little bit more complicated because in some cases bids they're not good for a full month. So those are the kinds of things that you're going to start hearing from me and seeing from me is, I got a quote from, Debbie for plumbing and it's good for 8 days because the raw materials that are being used for purchasing are changing in price so fast, contractors can't give me a price that's good for a month and a half until the next meeting. So we're going to have to figure that out together. I don't know how often it's going to happen, but I promise you it will happen.
We'll work it out.
Yeah.
When you are talking about inviting people to bid, I mean, for the amounts that are in our current procurement policy, there will be public notice.
Oh,
correct?
clearly, yeah. No, we're putting a page on our website for it.
Excellent.
We're also going to put advertisements in the paper, even if they're not required at the IFB level, letting people know that there's an opportunity to bid on the plumbing at the Little League field. It's a tiny little project, and even under our current procurement policy, it's not required, but gosh, if we could give local folks some work, I'd love to spend the money in ARPA that way.
And I think given the ARPA money, it's just prudent.
Oh, clearly, yeah, no, so we're gonna cross so many Ts on spending these dollars that I think that notification of spending won't be an issue for you. I think you'll be hitting the please stop button before you know it.
Do we have any other council comments on this?
I have a question. What is Sunset Park?
I can't hear you.
Where is Sunset?
Sunset Park is a place to sit at the end of the parking lot where everybody pulls in to watch the sun go down over the creek and the boats sit there. So
Right there at the, Mount Prospect Bridge in that space.
Between the Harbor Master House and the launch
And
and Mallards. Right at the end of the Mallards parking lot. Where the boats pull up alongside the dock.
Okay, all right.
And one of the reasons that that's on there is because we're getting the bulkhead replaced with BPA and big money. So all of that's going to get torn up and replaced. So really the only cost is going to be what we put on the surface of that area down there.
How could we put $40,000 on this?
Okay.
Well, you'd be surprised, but it would be more along the lines of, do you put stamped concrete? Because if water runs over the top, we don't want it to get wrecked by the seawater. Do we put bollards in there to keep trucks from driving up on it so that people can sit in a chair and watch the sun go down? Do we put umbrella shade? You know, that kind of thing. But all of those design features, nothing happens until you all agree to the design. So if we get down to Sunset Park and you realize, we'll put stamped concrete there so people can sit, but we're not going to put bollards or furniture or anything like that. And we just simply reappropriate, I say we in the U sense, you reappropriate those funds.
Right.
If we have a savings in one area, and I know the material one that's going to be coming, if we have a material savings, you can reappropriate those dollars into another area.
Right.
So all of that, trust me, it's coming at you and it's going to come fast because of some conversations.
So we do not have to obligate these funds until December 23rd of 2024.
No, you have to encumber those funds by December 23rd of December 31st of 24. But
Yes.
we've already told Treasury what 23 projects we're going to be working on. We've set the budget for each. They haven't quite gotten to the point of what you do with budget underages or overages yet, but they will in the next reporting cycle.
What I read today, it said that unexpended funds are not subject to recapture or return until December 31st of 26.
26, that's correct. You have to encumber by 24, you have to fully expend by 26.
So that means if we do not have to encumber till 24, this is a working document that
Of course
we
it is.
can,
Can I comment about the bathrooms?
Sorry, go ahead, Fletcher.
I mean, if we have to renovate the building over, the building, the Chandler building we just bought, and that's gonna have to be done before we can renovate the police department. We need to get to work on that immediately. So I'm asking if we can get, if it's council's okay with council, if we can get, somebody like Fraser Associates that's working with Main Street to look at, to come up with some, pretty small, initial plans for it. To how to put, where to put the bathrooms, where to put the door.
Yeah, I would probably look at an architect and also a contractor that would be willing to do design build because we might be able to save some money and some time that way.
Yeah,
But again, the designs for all of that are going to come forward to this group.
yeah, but I mean, I think, we need to get rolling on that, or we're gonna be way behind on the police department.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. And we got 2 construction projects. One has to be complete before we can even do the
Hang
other.
on, Fletcher. Tom is talking.
Okay, I didn't know he wasn't finished. I could have waited. My next question was for the Northeast Park. It says removing unsafe equipment, but it doesn't say anything about putting any picnic tables or anything.
Oh, the unsafe equipment that we're removing is just the things that were horribly broken and unsafe. Then what we're going to do is I'm hoping to use the street captains that were part of the Northeast project grant to come together and help do the design work for the new park. And then once we get the design work, then we can move forward with the project planning of replacing. But absolutely, no, I think that we just wanted to get the things out of there that were in bad shape right now. And some of that's already been done. We've still got one more piece that we're sort of looking at, the monkey bars down there. They've rusted away at the top. And those things are in there deep now. So we're trying to figure out what's going to be, if that's going to be a keeper or not. But yeah, no, the captains from the Northeast Planning Grant will be involved with the design. And then if they choose not to, they say, you know, look, I didn't want to do that. Maybe they can help find somebody else who would be willing. All right? Yeah, no, there's a lot of voices that are going to be heard on this.
Any further comments from council? It's public comment time. Anybody from what?
We're still in council discussion. The information that we received today from the town manager about HRSD, I'm sure it will be in this is part of the
Can
session.
we, yeah, but we're not going out of the council session. We can come back to that if you don't mind, just because it is now 8 o'clock and people have been sitting, and if there's anyone who wanted to speak, then we'll come right back to you.
Do you need a motion to approve this?
No,
No.
it's discussion.
No?
Oh,
The
for
ARPA
the priority,
priorities?
no, because there's nothing that's being expended at this point. It's just sort of me hitting the gas a little
Is
bit.
there any public comment? No. Ms. Marie. Thank you.
We received this email today from the town manager about would you like to explain? Because I'm gonna make a
Sure.
motion that we bring it to council for discussion. So,
Well, it's gonna have to, because it involves real estate. So the concept is this, or the issue is this, is that HRSD approached me and said that they are going to be rebuilding the pump station at the end of Hartman. That's always been part of the plan. I put them in touch with Escadiv because they cannot remove the current pump station before the new pump station is built, because all of this wastewater has to have a place to flow and be treated. So they have to build next to our current pump station. I put them in touch with Escadiv to see if Escadiv would sell them the back part of their property so that they could have, it would be right next to ours, and maybe it would give a few bucks to Escadiv. That went along swimmingly right up until a couple days ago, where HRSD's attorneys were notified that there is a creditor that's still reporting a lien on the Escadiv property. Now, clearly that's an error. Everybody knows it's an error. It went to public auction. And when something's transferred to public auction, all liens must be resolved. So this is a clerical issue with the creditor of this property. It's nothing but that. But we've got a 27-mile pipeline that's being built up 13 that has no place to go right now. So HRSD is saying, look, we need a plan B. If Escadiv takes 3 months to get this cleared, we don't have 3 months before we can start on the construction of this pump station, for the simple reason that they're looking at 40-week lead times on the materials to purchase the items to build this pump station. So they need to get it engineered, and they need to get the procurement done for this pump station. And if they wait, up to 3 months for Escadiv to get cleared, they're going to be horribly, horribly behind schedule. So I talked with them and said that if you take the end of Hartman Avenue, where our pump station is currently, and look to the right, there's a tree area between that and where the public works folks park their cars. There's 100-foot by 100-foot area that they could use there. So the question is, rather than getting their land from Escadiv, they could get it from us, and they'd be able to maintain their schedule. In order for us to sell that, and they would need to have full transfer of ownership, so in all likelihood it'd be a sale. The 100 by 100 parcel that they had appraised in the back of Escadiv was $3,500. So this is not a massive financial transaction, but it's a really important financial transaction, because if they don't have ownership, they can't build their pump station. If they can't build their pump station, there's a pipeline to nowhere going up Route 13, and that's a huge problem. So The issue is, would council consider selling or transferring ownership of that 100 by 100 foot parcel at the back of Hartman Avenue to HRSD that would allow for them to engineer it in their new land, and they could just keep the ball rolling.
Is that,
The legalities behind it are they need to have the property surveyed. So they wanted to find out, they wanted to gauge the interest of council first, because they don't want to retain surveyors if you all say no. And then the second thing is we would have to have public hearings for the disposition of real estate. We need to post those meetings publicly. There needs to be public hearing and public comment invited for those. So we can't turn around and do this like that either. So what would end up happening is, if you say, yes, we would consider doing that, then they would go ahead and retain their surveyors. At the same time, we're still, I say we, I have nothing to do with this. They are going to still try to work with the creditor on the Escadiv property to see if they can get that clerical error fixed quickly. I talked to the attorney who handled that process, and he said, you know what, Matt, it can be 5 days or it can be 5 months, depending on the creditor. He's leaning toward the 5 days because he thinks that once they realize it's just a clerical thing, they'll sign off on it and move forward. Once they do that, this group's off the table and we can just say, go, run and be free. If they don't, and it takes months, it would help HRSD in this shorewide project quite a lot to have this parcel made available to them. Does that summarize it in a way that sounds familiar with my email?
the
Okay.
parcel that you're talking about, is that under lease to the Little League?
No, this would be if you go back to Hartman Avenue where it goes dark and goes to Wood Road or
Walk the
that
dogs
dirt road.
there,
Yep, it's back
back in there?
in there. So it doesn't have anything to do, we wouldn't encroach anywhere up, even probably on anything that's currently grass, if that helps you.
I know.
Okay.
What it looks like
All right.
back there. It's not pretty. Okay, so if I understand correctly, what you're saying is, first you're going to try to work with ESCO. If that falls through, then you're going to come back to council, put it on the agenda and vote.
Well, I'm probably gonna have to do those things simultaneously.
Right, simultaneous, it's
We need
necessary.
Just say we're willing to consider it.
Yeah, if you're willing to consider it, HRSD is willing to invest in the surveyors. Once they get it surveyed, then we'll sort of know whether or not Escada has been able to clear their lien. If they have, it'll be all theirs, and that's fantastic news.
The whole thing is a matter of timing, so that if we go ahead and say, go ahead and sell it, they don't, and it's a contingency purchase, because if Escadiv comes through, then we're out of it.
Well, it really is gonna come down to whichever can happen fastest,
Right.
because HRSD is truly under the gun on this one because of this project. So
Well, that's what I'm saying.
what I'm saying is that if we say, yes, we would consider moving forward with something like this, then they can go ahead and get the survey. In the meantime, the lawyers are going to continue with Escadiv, and if they clear it, great. If they don't, then we're going to have to go to the next step and say, are you serious enough to hold a public hearing? Then we go to the public hearing, and at that point, if they get released, they can still work that. So it's really just working simultaneously with Escadiv to make sure that we can get this done as quickly as possible.
It's just, right, it's just timing,
Yep.
whoever gets there first.
Yeah.
So what are you asking to do at this point?
At this point, just let me know that you're willing to have the conversation about transferring ownership. And if you are, then HRSD is going to go ahead and retain their surveyors. They already have surveyors
So
on.
you're basically asking us to vote whether we're willing to transfer the.
If you're willing to consider transferring.
So follow up on Joy's question about the location of it. So if this, we're not gonna go, this little piece, we're not gonna go to HRSD, it would just continue to be woods and whatever it is now. There's not any other alternate thing that would be preventing it from doing.
No, it is uncared for woodlands that exist between the dead end of Hartman Avenue and our gravel parking lot.
And if conversely, if the timing of the Escadiv path doesn't work out, then they would just keep their little corner as another little part of their yard.
Yes.
Or whatever.
Yep, that's exactly right. This isn't going to take over. In any case, they're going to be clearing trees and dropping a really well cared for pump station facility compared to what we currently operate. Trust me when I tell you, this is light years ahead. So in any case, it would be back in that quadrant where it's really not affecting anybody's usability, but it's really important that HRSD know that they've got a path forward at this point.
Do we need a vote? To vote
Or a
later?
consensus to.
I think if you give them a consensus to proceed, then they'll go ahead and get their surveyors started. Nothing can happen until after we do a public hearing anyway. We have to advertise public hearings with 7 days notice before they're held. So nothing's going to sneak up on anybody. I just want to be able to either say, yay, we would consider moving forward, or
So
absolutely
we're just
not,
gonna
we're stopped.
do a voice vote here and see how you feel about it for the future. Mr. Berger?
Yay.
Of course.
Yes.
Yes. Or you have a consensus.
I'm sorry, Fletcher? No, he was just saying something.
I don't have a vote, but of course, yeah.
All right.
My goal is that this just be entered in the minutes, that this
Yeah, no, that's
it go as
perfect.
public record.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Okay. All right, committee reports, Ms. Marino.
Yeah, personnel, we are, hit the jackpot. We found the person who wrote the original personnel policy, and he has it on a flash drive. So now we can print that out if we need to, because that was a real stalemate for quite a while. So we're moving, and we will need a lot of attorney interpretation on this policy, and that will have to happen before we get, it's gonna be a lot.
Okay, but you're content that you found something valuable and you're moving forward with
Slowly.
but
Yes.
forward. Okay.
Yes. We're getting there.
Okay.
We're determined to bring you an excellent document that you will read, please.
Do we have a planning commission report?
Yeah, I'm gonna defer to Matt on that.
Sure. You want to defer waterfront to me as well?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't at the waterfront, you missed it, yeah.
But I don't get to call you to do it?
No.
The planning commission reviewed the B1 and BW ordinances. They've made some suggested changes, but as with personnel, there needs to be legal oversight on a couple of the questions. So our town's attorney has those questions, and I'm hoping that she's going to be able to respond in time to get the information back to planning commission before their next meeting. So it's sort of in the.
So did I just go through five? I don't know what you're talking about there. Would you do that again, please? Not
Sure.
the whole
The
thing, but I
Planning
don't-
Commission has reviewed the B1 and BW ordinances. The BW ordinance specifically because of the operation that was going to take place at the corner. We want to make sure that any ordinance that we have is going to be sufficient to preclude something like that from happening again if the property sells. So that part of it is one conversation. The B1, they had conversations about whether apartments above downstairs retail downtown were by right or by permit. They also had conversations about whether or not they would require a special use permit to have a homestay or an Airbnb in any of those above commercial residences.
Was there any clarification there on
They-
the apartments up? Because this sounds very familiar going back a ways.
I can't speak to going back a ways. What I can say is it was unanimous that it would be by right to have apartments or residences above downstairs retail or commercial downstairs.
Okay.
And also there was no indication that having an Airbnb or a homestay downtown was a problem. We did create parking because I know that that's going to create some parking issues. So we created a new parking ordinance as part of that. And it's all in with our attorney right now, going through a question about the use of special use permits, and it's a really important question, so she's doing some research. So that's planning commission.
Now, the waterfront committee,
No, hold on.
Well, I have a comment. I saw where you did in the parking for B1, which is business downtown. And it said that parking on public streets are allowed between 5, are not allowed between 5 a.m. and 3 a.m. No parking between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. Question, where do these people who live in the apartments over the building, where do they supposed to park those 2 hours?
Yeah, no, that's exactly the purpose of it, was to allow for businesses to have their customers parking on the street while the businesses are open. And what that would require is our town parking lots to be by permit only for after hours, so that residences or visitors upstairs would need to park in parking lots, not in front of the businesses. And trust me, this is all just still in, that's why it's in the planning commission. It's not before you for consideration. So
Okay.
if you're interested in chatting up more about parking, please come to planning commission. First Monday of every month, 5:30, right in this room.
sounds complicated.
It's not. It's not. It's the simple fact is that we want the businesses to be able to have their customers parked up front, not loaded with all the residents that are going to be
Just the
upstairs.
timing that you were saying, 5 a.m. or.
There's the hours are, that's where we're going to say is permitted parking in the town parking lot, or it's permitted parking on the street, that type of thing. So we're working through all of those things on how we can best serve our businesses and make sure that new residences upstairs have a place to park. Okay.
On the waterfront, any other comments here? Okay,
Yeah, waterfront was a pretty standard monthly meeting now that the wharf is open and the slips are being occupied. We're, we've got issues getting our hands on golf carts, us and everybody else. So we're still working through. So, because council just approved the purchase of golf carts after July 1, what we're hoping is that we're going to be able to get on a list and maybe get them delivered right then, and maybe rent something between now and then be able to purchase. But golf carts are actually kind of a hard get right now. So we're working everything we know how to do to get golf carts down for our transient voters. And if that includes waiting until July and buying, then so be it. But we just can't get our hands on it.
are you looking out of state to buy?
We're looking everywhere.
South Carolina, North Carolina?
We're looking everywhere. Golf
Okay.
courses, we're looking at Club Cadet, Club Car at their factory. I mean, you go online and they say they're available. You call the salesperson, they say, yeah, they're available, but it's 18-month wait.
That's not very available.
Right.
Down there, and there's parking lots full of golf
Well,
carts.
even if you go up to north in Pocomo, the fellow's got 150 carts up there. It's just you can't get any of them.
Well, you're looking at gas and not electric. Electric's available, right?
Some electric are available, but the overwhelming consensus of Waterfront was that we should have gas. If we're gonna own it, we should have gas because the maintenance on a gas cart is significantly less expensive and easier to do. So after July 1, we'll be looking at buying gas carts. If we can rent electric between now and then, we're on it. So that's sort of what's happening. So that was the meat of the conversation at Waterfront, was about golf carts.
Is it possible we could revisit that? It seems like,
Sorry, Fletcher, I can't hear you.
it seems like gas is a little environmentally not too great, but that's my personal opinion, but I know Waterfront doesn't agree with me on that. Can we look at that again?
I'm happy to bring it back to him, but it was fairly clear. They were treating it more about speed or ability to repair and ability to maintain.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, well, then we can continue that conversation. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
We'd like for that back to Waterfront for more discussion on electric versus gas.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. Do you have a report that you'd like to
Uh,
add?
Yeah, the only report I have is, if you can hear me, I guess, Cindy's got, we went to the Main Street Conference and we're gonna report on that at the next meeting. There was a tremendous amount of information about that. Don't really have anything else, no other report, yeah.
Could you please tell me what he said?
He said, other than the Main Street report that Cindy and he attended the conference, they'll report on that next month. Other than that, he doesn't have a report.
Cindy, you want to school?
No, I wouldn't dare.
Okay. All right, town manager's report.
I submitted my report in writing, so I'm not going to read that to you. I have two sort of updates. One is about the Cheney property down at the wharf. I was able, through a contact in town, I was able to have a one-on-one 45-minute conversation with the Deputy Secretary of Transportation for the Commonwealth. Pointed out to her all of the issues that we've got. She's going to flag that section of the VDOT street at her level. And she also pointed me at a few different federal options for funding that might be able to get us that. Because one of the, I brought back last time was that VDOT recommended a revenue sharing grant, which would require, I think, between 20 and 30% town match for a sidewalk. And basically what she was saying is that, first of all, the feds love sidewalks. So there's a program called Protect. There's a grant that might be able to give us 100% funding from the feds for that area. So we're looking into that. And she was also looking at some other options that might be available at her level and not the local area. But I was making sure that she knew that Chris Isdell and his team are a phenomenal local resource for us. We cannot speak highly enough of them. And she made sure to make note of that. And then the last update I've got is, and it's in here, but I just wanted to let everybody know that we'll be making neighborhood notifications for Jackson Street that's going to be paved starting in mid-June and completed before the 4th of July. That includes sidewalks, curbs, and street with 6 inches of base. Branscome's doing the work. If anybody knows the quality of work that they do, that's what we're going to expect, and that's all being done at no cost to the town.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody?
Can I have a quick question?
Yes?
Because that all breezed by me. I
If
think
you
I'm
just
like,
stand and state
I'm
your
sorry,
name.
Irene Cardinal. It kind of breezed by me when you said that, so I just want to clarify. So 26 King Street is good to go for an Airbnb.
Oh, 26 King hasn't made an application yet. Now I know what you're talking about. So it wasn't 26
Oh, I'm
Kerr, it was
sorry.
26
They
King.
didn't make an application.
No, ma'am. No, what I let those folks, just so everybody's clear, that there's the house over at 26 King, which is sort of between Jack's Richardson's place and the empty lot between the Mr. Bagwell's white property. They are people who visit Hancock all the time, and they boat across the way, and they wanted to make sure they could run an Airbnb in that house. Because that house is in the business district, it was sort of contingent on what's going on at Planning Commission right now with whether or not we allow Airbnbs downtown, because right now there are no Airbnbs or homestays allowed in the business district downtown. What I shared with the prospective owners was that the Planning Commission has talked about it, but until they make a recommendation to this group and this group votes, at this point, I said, I can't predict what council's going to say. I can't predict it. What I can tell them is the sort of the tone of the conversation at Planning Commission. But beyond that, I don't have any advice.
Would they qualify based on our circles over there on the map?
The circles would, Planning Commission has said that inside the B1 district, that 200 feet would not apply because everything is so close, and if there were 2 apartments right next to each other. So that's what's being crafted. But as I told the prospective purchasers, I don't have any idea where Planning Commission is going to end, and I don't have any idea what town council is going to say once it gets here. I said, but what I can say is that was what commission discussed. So
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Irene, I didn't realize that was your question. All right, I got you.
Thank you.
You have a complaint about the handicap parking spot in the trailer. What was the complaint?
I couldn't find it. It wasn't well signed and it wasn't
There's
marked
bushes
well.
over, because I parked by it tonight and I was like, Oops, I pulled into it actually.
Well, yeah, and so I got my first quote, and based on the size of the quote, I'll be having to go get more quotes and bids, so I had to back off. I was hoping it'd be a small repair that I could fit in under, but it's not, so, you know. we're
Can't
gonna have
we
to-
prune that tree?
It's just
Sorry?
the trees
Limit up.
covered the sign.
Well, it's more than just that, it was the painting on the side, painting on the sidewalk, the sign next to Janet's building, there's one or two, I mean, it's really a little bit bigger than that,
Difficulty finding.
yeah.
The camera systems, because the residents came in October, so we're at the point where we're having the vendor design the system.
Yeah,
Any
they're,
dates?
they're coming in 13th, thank you, to go through a drive-through the town and say, this is what they would recommend. Once they put that together, then I'll have a biddable project. Once I have a biddable project, then I can put an RFP out. But right now, it's, I don't know what to put out for bid if I don't have a design of a system.
That's funded through,
Well, that's one of the questions is where the funding dollars are going to come from. So that's why I haven't been pushing forward so quickly with this, because we don't know where the money's going to come from. I have thoughts,
so there is
but
no
I have
money in our
thoughts, but-
budget for
Well,
this.
there's this, no. But there are opportunities in here for using some of the ARPA monies for this, because we do have security for our water distribution system in here. If we had budget underages, that's not a word, it is now.
Underruns.
Underruns, thank you, then town council, if after we get this design system, you could say that that's the most important thing and you can reappropriate. So if I were looking into my crystal ball, that's what it would be.
You have any further questions? Or not? Any other questions to the town manager's report? Any other comments?
I do have one. The sidewalk and drainage issue on King Street down there, did any of your talks go on with Cheney about the drainage components going through their property?
That's been complicated because Cheney's actually gone a little bit dark on me. He finally replied to one of my emails and said he'd call me, but then he never did. The ask was that Cheney give VDOT a permanent easement under their property to add a second storm drain, sort of down at the bottom of the hill rather than halfway down the hill. So there's two requests from Cheney. The first is that they give that permanent easement so a VDOT managed storm drain can go underneath their property. And then the second is if they could give us the enough room in front of their fence to create a sidewalk, because that's such a safety issue. Now, as far as the quality of pavement and the water, our current VDOT people have a project in place to what they call laminate, where the road delaminated, and they're going to go in and patch those areas that delaminated, and also look at the current storm drain. But I need Cheney to step in and help me with either putting a sidewalk in. They wouldn't do that, but that's where I'm trying to have conversations with state and local VDOT people to help us with the public safety of walkers, and then also the storm management down there is you and I both know it's a big problem. So, but it's very actively going on. So I'm hoping that
It's a real safety issue too. when you're walking.
this is
Are there-
terrible.
Are there alternatives if they don't agree?
Not many, not many.
So you're just basically asking them for an easement for storm drainage.
Well, I think if there were an easy ask, that's the easy ask, is to give VDOT the ability to go underneath their property and maintain it. That's sort of the easy one. The harder one for them is to give us enough of a right of way to put a sidewalk in so their trucks can go the same way our people can walk. Because right now, the way that the water gathers down there forces you off the sidewalk into the middle of the road,
Yes,
and then
there's a
Well, there
curve.
is no
there's a
sidewalk.
blind curve.
Yes.
So that, and the stormwater doesn't go anywhere because it doesn't have anywhere to go. So all of those things, that's where, I'm trying to ring that public safety bell pretty loud at the state and local level, and there's money from the feds, and there's, Cheney, I think is gonna start the conversation again. So all of these things are going on, but it's really important.
So following up
Yeah.
from they said they would get back to you and then they said that they would call you
Yeah,
and then they didn't. What's next?
I talked to his boss.
And, oh, you will talk.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you said you did.
No, and we only get to play tag for so long. Okay.
Council comments. I'm gonna start with Ms. Knock and go that way, just for variety.
I don't know whether it was timing or what, but the 1 yard that I mentioned that was way high is now cut. I don't know if that was the town or the people who did it, but that was good to see it having been done.
Yeah.
And I noticed another yard on Hill Street today. The people have moved the long brick house. The people have moved and the lawn is a mess.
Ms. Gillespie?
Yeah, I spoke for me. But I
Yeah,
noticed.
what I can tell you is that as the growing season is here,
You said something.
grass management is, our first step is, our code doesn't really allow for a lot. So I leave door hangers and then I talk to people and then I have to send letters. By the time I do all of that, it's not really manageable. So
I've looked and there's nothing in the grass.
there's some overgrowth questions. So
That's
it couldn't be, it could be much more clear and helpful to administer. If it were. Yes.
So we should look into that.
It used to be that way.
I
That
thought it
was more
9 inches
manageable.
at one time, what was in there? Wasn't it 9 inches or something?
Yes, and the town would send them a letter, notify them and give them a certain amount of time to cut it. If they did not, and the town would send one of the
We send
workers
them a bill.
and cut it and then send them the bill.
It's not in there.
Are you?
Okay.
Mr. Burger?
I do not have any further problems.
Thank you, sir. No, I'm switching up. Ms.
Okay.
Marino.
I'm thrilled to hear about Jackson Street. That is just because that truly is the worst street in town and has been for a long time. And I'm curious about the Northeast project. They've sort of went quiet on us. What's going on?
We just got the final accounting for the planning grant today. They get, the new project, the full 978, I think is the number, gets funded by the state on July 1. So they're going to bid on the demo projects, part of that just after July, and then then they'll be rolling it out pretty quickly after that. So they have to wait until they're funded.
Demo is the first step.
Since we're talking about appearance of property, do we have any ordinances that kind of say we'll clean up your property if you're letting vines grow on it and trees grow out of the gutter?
Yeah, that overgrowth is the one I was just trying to, this time of year, it's really tough, but I'll get what I'm using to administer to all of you folks. And then I will openly ask for your help in creating an ordinance that actually is administrable and manageable and enforceable. Because right now, we really don't have anything.
Yeah, and there's a property in Mount Prospect that's just not taken care of at all. The grass is cut. That's about the only thing.
I
That's a
think I know what you're
That's a
talking about.
derelict abandoned issue.
Yeah, well, that's where the planning commission is addressing us, they're doing a spot blight, they're entertaining a spot blight, which would address that very thing, as well as there are 13 homes in town outside of the Northeast project that would probably qualify for that spot blight ordinance. So
Can you give us a preview of what it would say?
I'm writing it down. Yeah.
And with pleasure, I'd like to ask the mayor if he has any comments.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Sorry?
No comment.
Congratulations on the graduation and the wedding and the trip. Leslie.
Thank you. Yeah.
No, I have none. And we need a motion.
I
to
move we
adjourn.
adjourn.
Second. Moved in second, this meeting is adjourned.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Good job. Better.